Hello and welcome back to the UK legacy banks and their banking apps. Nick, I'm going to pass it over to you because I'm sure there's a bit to celebrate for those in the world of banking. What have you got for us this month?
We look at the last 3 months here, so we've got a moving average, and this is interesting because if you remember, if you listened to this last month, the nationwide had rose to the top really based on some excellent work on their mobile app updates. This month, you can see that they've slipped back slightly, so they're now this blue line in third place. And Lloyd's has surged ahead again and is now the definite market leader. And then Barclays, which was last month third to both Lloyd's and Nationwide, is now very much in second place, and they've overtaken Nationwide. And interesting picture. And Santander seem to have been going in the opposite direction. So interesting kind of divergence now in terms of the distribution of ratings across the top 5 UK legacy banks.
Very much so. So let's dig a little deeper, shall we?
Well, no, I thought we'd do something different this time.
Yeah.
And look at, if you were Barclays, because I mean Barclays have been kind of, snapping at the heels of Lloyd's and Nationwide for a while. But I'm just interested in what, if I were them, what would I do to try and obtain outright market leadership in engaged app ratings, which is an important kind of KPI in terms of customer satisfaction, brand value, and everything else. So one of the ways to do that is to drill down underneath the top line engaged customer ratings, and what we like to do is to look at four different levels of customer experience. Now, level 1 is foundational, which are all the basic hygiene factors like reliability and usability and security and operability and so on. And you can see here there isn't really much to choose between the top 5. They've all really got this sorted out. So then we move on to level 2, which is core customer journeys. These are things like authentication, mobile app updates, and then basic banking features like depositing checks and checking your balance. And you can see that, interestingly, NatWest are the leader in core customer journeys, and Lloyd's are ranked fairly low. And Barclays are doing well. They're second here. And then if we look at the third one, which is incremental banking features, which are the really important functionality of the current account, so money in, money out, payments, and everything to do with setting up payees and your standing orders and everything like that. This is where Lloyd's are really ahead, and you can see that this is the one area I think where Barclays has the most catching up to do, because they're about 50 basis points or half an engaged customer percentage point rating point below Lloyd's. So I thought we'd just drill down a bit further then into what comprises the incremental banking features and where could possibly Barclays close that gap. So these are some of the incremental banking features. You can see that Lloyd's is ahead in most of them. Barclays seems to be strong in some and not others. So contactless payments, it seems to be a long way behind, except that you can see here the sample sizes or the frequency of the reviews is fairly low, indicating this might not be a very important feature. And they're a little bit behind in spend analysis, but again, a small sample. So this is interesting because it does tell you where the gaps are in terms of the gap between Barclays and Lloyd's. But to do this properly, you're missing a piece of information here, which is the relative importance of each of these incremental banking features, because you really want to fix the important ones, close the gaps in the important ones to really move the needle on the overall engaged customer score. So there are a couple of ways of looking at importance. One is to start to think about in terms of the volume of reviews that happen to mention a particular incremental banking feature, how are those distributed? And this shows you that. So it's effectively saying that of all the reviews that the bank gets, and this is looking at Barclays in particular, most are about, most within incremental banking features, 1.7%, are about the check deposit feature. And then the next most popular, if you like, review topic for incremental banking features is app view transactions feature, which is 1.5% of the total, not 1.5% of incremental banking features, but 1.5% of all the reviews that Barclays gets. So this is useful. And it would maybe suggest that you need to look at check deposit and app transactions feature, except there's still a missing piece, and that is which of those reviews are positive and which are negative, because really you want to focus your attention on the ones which are negative. If it's positive, that's fine. So here we can actually break them down, and this is doing something pretty cool called sentiment analysis, and it's actually working out from the language, the sort of semantics and the kind of tone of the review, whether these are negative comments or positive comments. And here, this does throw it into relief because it suddenly looks like the app check deposit feature for Barclays is the one that's attracting the most negative comments, and potentially the feature which is dragging down its score relative to Lloyd's and the rest of the market the most. Interesting view. So, is this enough to make a decision that Barclays should focus on app check deposits? Nearly, but I think there's one more missing piece of information, and that is, what is the gap to the market leader or to Lloyd's for each of these? And these check deposit feature a big enough gap to make it worth really focusing on. So we can look at that as well. I'm going to start by just looking at the top one, which is that account statement feature. This says Barclays is ranked 6 out of 11. But interestingly, it's actually the same as Lloyd's here. So what this is effectively saying is that if you move the needle on account statement feature, you would get above Lloyd's, but you wouldn't necessarily close a large gap on Lloyd's because it's already level pegging. So let's just go back to check deposit feature. And there we can see Barclays is ranked practically the lowest of all the legacy banks. And there is quite a large gap. So there's a gap of around 50 basis points of engaged customer score between Barclays and Lloyd's. So this does really show, I think, that the one feature that Barclays really needs to pay attention to and somehow improve in order to catch up with Lloyd's is app check deposit feature. So the question is then, what would they need to do? And we can look at some of the verbatim comments to give us a clue. So first of all, we'll look at the verbatims about the Barclays app check deposits feature, and that's showing us that there are issues, it seems, around photographing the check, the scanner process, and so on and so forth. So that seems to indicate something around the way that the app is set up to take an image of the check in order to be able to pay it in. And then if you compare that with the Lloyd's experience, sorry, this is the NatWest experience because they're the market leaders in this, they seem to have got this sorted. So if there was a kind of a role model for Barclays, if they can learn from somebody else's implementation of this feature, probably the one to look at would be NatWest. And we happen to know that NatWest came relatively late to the party with this feature, so they were probably able to learn from others as well.
That is a absolutely fascinating deep dive, and we're nearly at our time limit, so we're going to call it quits there. If you want some of this information, you can check it out on our website, and we do actually also have a slide deck with each of those images on there if you wanted to look at it a little bit closer. Sing out, flick us a message, and we will see you next month with some more incredible insights from this man. Thanks, folks.